Recently, at AI UK, prolific CEO Phelim presented a talk on the critical role that people will play in AI's future, where he explored why human feedback and oversight are essential for safe, effective, and trusted AI. We received so many thoughtful questions during the Q&A, so today I'm joined by Phelim to answer some of those questions. To kick us off, how do you protect against human annotators using LLMs to label the data?
Yeah, so obviously this is a critical concern for anyone who's trying to access high quality human data, and model collapse is very topical at the moment. So this problem that emerges if you use AI to reinforce and train AI risks kind of like circular reasoning rather than pushing forward the frontier of these models. So how do we protect against this? We've many steps in the process. Firstly, just soft controls, so explicitly telling participants that AI use isn't allowed. It's obviously a kind of a psychological deterrent and actually reduces AI usage much more than you might expect. Even that simple reminder of this is not allowed, and also a reminder of why it's important that people are providing their genuine novel thoughts. I think on Prolific this effect is amplified because participants have verified accounts that can't be duplicated or recreated. So they have multiple interactions with researchers, and I want to make sure that they maintain the reputation of their account. Secondly, we implement kind of hard controls like just disabling copy paste functionality, presenting text as images to prevent kind of trivial use of AI tools. And again, these like technical barriers or just like friction in the process reduce AI usage. But we've also developed a machine learning model to specifically detect AI generated responses. This model achieved over 95% accuracy, tracking behavioral metrics such as keystroke patterns, timing of copy paste, and other kind of behavioral methods that are associated with the telltale signs of AI use, copying text, switching tabs. And particularly these keystroke patterns are particularly revealing. Genuine human responses show a very different typing rhythm than AI assisted ones. But really, I think the most effective strategy is to combine many of these approaches, the human kind of soft controls, in addition to measuring of behavior and these kind of harder controls.
How do you verify annotators so that there aren't bad actors? So, for example, the Microsoft chatbot in 2016 turned into a biased system quickly.
Yeah, great question. The first thing I'd say is that the Tay chatbot incident obviously happened way back in 2016, and model safety techniques have dramatically improved since then, largely due to like advancements in post-training and human alignment techniques. And while today's models are much more robust, obviously the kind of underlying motivation of this question, verifying these are real people, who they are, their demographics still remains crucial. So at Prolific, we built a data quality suite we call Protocol. It's our proprietary data protection system that maintains kind of quality from the moment participants sign up all the way through to like the continuous monitoring of their behavior throughout the data collection methodologies. So first, verification starts before, as I mentioned, during onboarding, where we conduct bank grade ID verification, use technical checks to make sure that they're not duplicate accounts, not bots, are where they say they are and are who they say they are. So this kind of fundamental foundation of trust and honesty on the platform. Once their ID is verified, we run a bunch of qualitative qualitative assessments, evaluating their attentiveness, effort, comprehension, etc., which allows us to flag individuals who are providing low quality responses using LLMs when prompted not to, etc. So that's all the onboarding step before a participant has ever taken part in a study. But this protocol system also continually analyzes participant behavior, their responses to data collection or studies, and detects these signs of suspicious activity. As I mentioned in the previous question, there's the signs of LLM use or a lack of attention in the studies, or just statistical anomalies as measured through the platform, unrealistic travel times through IP, etc. There's a real breadth of different signals we use here to feed into a kind of a comprehensive data quality measure. And then thirdly, we rely pretty heavily on user feedback. So from our data collectors giving us information about which participants provide high quality data and which have not. And as all of these measures kind of feed into protocol, if it does detect problems or low quality effort from our participants, they can be removed from the platform, and we maintain like extremely strict policies against behavior that compromises the data quality.
How much influence does fine-tuning have over the initial training biases that were embedded during the training stages? Can it change or even eliminate them?
Yeah, so I think there's probably a breadth of literature here that I'm not fully up to speed with, but at a high level, fine-tuning can significantly modify, but rarely completely eliminate the biases that have been embedded during the pre-training. Some of these foundational biases will be like fairly deeply ingrained in the model's parameters and reflect patterns or biases in the pre-training data. And I think that overall the effectiveness of post-training fine-tuning depends largely on three factors. So the scale and diversity of the fine-tuning data set, the specific techniques employed, so RLHF or DPO, preference optimization, etc. And then also, I guess, how targeted the data sets are towards particular biases that have been targeted during the process. And overall, fine-tuning works best as a comprehensive approach to addressing bias, which should include pre-training data curation, the diverse RLHF data sets, and then also, of course, like ongoing evaluation of the biases once the model has been post-trained, and also on an ongoing basis in production. So at Prolific, we help organizations access the human beings for the feedback, data curation, or the evaluation steps to try to address some of these biases that can emerge during model training.
Considering that DeepSeek has cut costs significantly by fine-tuning other AI models, how do you think we should balance human involvement and cost?
Yeah, so the DeepSeek case is obviously fascinating and demonstrated how advanced reasoning models can be developed, maybe with less reliance on human feedback during initial training, and in particular for these verifiable domains like coding and mathematical reasoning, where there's a verifiably correct answer at the end, and does maybe signal a shift in how human data is being used across the AI development lifecycle. In general, this discussion of like how should you balance human involvement and cost, it's obviously a very practical challenge of anyone developing AI models. Human feedback can be the gold standard and provide rich, high quality data, but human beings can be expensive. And I think the DeepSeek case maybe shows this idea of strategically deploying human data rather than using it exclusively. You can obviously reduce the need for human feedback early in development for certain types of tasks, but maybe not others, and it's still going to be critical for alignment, evals, safety assessment, maybe bias detection, and also for pushing these models further in non-verifiable domains where domain-specific expertise is required. I think in general, if you're budget constrained or you've limited resources, you want to take a targeted approach where you maybe focus human feedback on post-training evaluation and refinement rather than extensively using it during the initial development, and prioritize the human in the loop for these higher value tasks, domain expert, specialized models that models can't necessarily easily acquire through reinforcement learning alone. And in general, the best approach maybe strategically uses human feedback as a precision tool and deployed where it creates the most value, rather than viewing it as either required everywhere or as something that is disposable now that these DeepSeek style RL techniques have started to be used.
With representative samples versus random selection, how does Prolific select the participants for development? What mechanisms do you have in place to stop this introducing bias?
Yeah, again, very, very good question. I will say off the bat that stopping bias entirely is almost impossible. I think it's always just important to be aware of what biases exist in your sample and in your data collection, and try to minimize and understand like what biases may exist rather than trying to remove it entirely. Though at Prolific, when we talk about our representative samples, both UK, US representative samples and our global representative sampling. We tend to employ stratified samples rather than purely random sampling. So this allows your demographics of your audience to maintain representation when matched against the census across key demographic variables like age, gender, ethnicity, geographic location, political persuasion, etc. And our platform uses this pre-screening mechanism to help identify and recruit the right participants for your study and construct these representative samples depending on the requirements of your project. To prevent the introduction of new biases, we try to be as transparent as possible about the participant pool's composition, the composition of the participants who took part in your data collection, and provide guidance and tooling to construct the most balanced samples for your use case. And I think it's a very powerful tool both for survey research and for AI feedback and evaluation. It's obviously increasingly important that the people who collect your data reflect the user base that you're trying to target, either for your model or AI application or for research.
How do you think about annotation tasks for which there is no real ground truth, such as hate speech, misinformation, etc.?
Yeah, it's obviously a tough one and a big topic for AI alignment in general, where we're trying to align these models to human values, even in domains where the correct answer is subjective and different groups may disagree. And I think the question or the tooling that we're trying to enable at Prolific is trying to allow people to answer the question of how would different people interpret this content, rather than trying to seek a objective or singly correct answer for these problems. And I talked about both Prism, a paper that won a Best Paper Award at NeurIPS, and some work from the Collective Intelligence Project, which I think kind of highlights the importance and kind of challenges here, and highlights the need for more consensus-based methodologies where multiple annotators review the same content and establish either agreement or disagreement metrics depending on where different people's perspective converges or diverges. And we don't kind of enforce a single methodology here, but try to provide a platform that enables developers and researchers to implement flexible approaches depending on their needs, but allow them to disaggregate based on the audience in their sample to understand who's responding to these tasks in different ways and how their demographics might influence their response. And this has led to some very, very interesting projects like Prism and the work that the Collective Intelligence Project are doing, employing structured deliberation approaches for particularly complex cases or areas where values may differ a lot, bringing these participants together, trying to have dialogue to understand different perspectives on their judgments, and really trying to understand the reasoning behind why people disagree on these statements and what their different interpretations might be. So the goal really isn't about trying to force some objective agreement or single ground truth, but enabling researchers and data collectors to map the broad landscape of human judgment and understand how people respond in different contexts.
What are your thoughts on balancing human evaluation and machine metrics? Human feedback is expensive for big data generation.
Yeah, this is obviously one of the challenges of using human data and human annotation in your work. And sometimes I think these things are held up as either human data or synthetic data or AI assisted data. I really see that in the medium term, human evaluation and AI evaluation are complementary tools that serve different purposes in the development lifecycle. The automated metrics give you kind of consistency, cost, and continuous monitoring capabilities, and are excellent for kind of tracking performance at scale, providing real-time or instant feedback during development, and they can scale to millions, tens of millions of examples. In contrast, human evaluation has depth, nuance, values alignment that automatic metrics simply can't match. So I think the most effective approach integrates both human judgment and synthetic data or automated judgment and aims to get the best of both worlds, right? Try to leverage the strength of each of these systems to build better AI systems that scale and are cost effective, but also incorporate human judgment and human feedback into the systems.